Hello, 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 good people, and welcome to Happy Healthy Whole with Sharea. I'm Sharea, and we are talking self-love for the next 4 weeks. And so last week we talked about the importance of the foundation of radical self-love. We gave 3 points around understanding and acknowledging radical self-love and what you need to do. And then I gave you some practical steps you can start with. So I hope you've been doing that mirror talk. I hope you've been releasing the shoulds and curating a space that honors your love for you and who you are and connect within your identity. This week, we're going to talk about unlearning and rebuilding and breaking free from negative self talk. Because self talk is one of those things where most of us struggle, it is important for us to start here. Let's start by listening to the voice in our head and knowing that many times it has started us off on a path of negativity and inner voices that are not self loving. So, if we think about it from that perspective, we tell ourselves many times throughout the day, I'm not good enough. I'm always a mess. I'll never get things right. Uh, and many of those are so full of experiences from our past and trauma from our past that I'm not going to get into it today. But that voice is not the truth. So today we're going to dive into unlearning negative self talk and rebuilding a loving inner voice that can help support your journey of self love. Because let me tell you, you might not believe this, but your mind should be the safest space for you to create a actual fight against non-loving behavior or non-loving behavior towards yourself. So think of it like a battlefield. If my battlefield consists of the foundation of me training and understanding how self-love is or what self-love is, and I start off with telling myself that I'm not good, I'm a mess, I'm not enough, then I'm actually creating an inner voice that believes that. And so we're going to change that truth by looking at how do we move from negative self-talk to breaking the cycle of that negative self-talk. So where does negative self-talk come from? You heard me say it just a moment ago around childhood experiences, societal expectations, and past mistakes. And so when we think about childhood experiences, what you're being told about yourself from early on can impact how you see yourself. So what you're being told from your mother, from your father, from those who may not even have been in your life, for those who may have abandoned, rejected, or put you in a position to not feel loved, many times what we've been told becomes an expression of what we tell ourselves. And so even without knowing that we're doing this, we sometimes are creating the cycles from our childhood in our own inner talk by reinforcing what they've said to us, or if you haven't already, check out the they videos, what they have said to us about why we're good enough or why we're not good enough. And so if a lot of us have been put in a position where no one was telling us we're beautiful, loving us through mistakes, telling us that no mistake is you creates your full identity and that you can live through these mistakes and that you can be a better version of you. If no one has never ever done that for you, it's much harder for you to even recognize that you're not creating that voice yourself because you've never gotten it. And so childhood experiences are where sometimes our negative self-talk. But then you had the addition for Black women and for women of color in general around societal expectations. But specifically for Black women, we're always being the strong one, the ones who fix everything, the ones who fix everything in our homes, the one who take care of everything in our homes, the one who has it all together. And because of those different expectations, a lot of it becomes really difficult for us to tell ourselves that making a mistake, not being perfect, not having the answer to everything, not having to do everything, not having to resolve everything, not having to save everything, still doesn't mean that we're less than, doesn't mean that we're not good enough, doesn't mean that we're a mess because we didn't get the perfect grade, get the perfect family, get the perfect friendship, get the perfect, right? It's those type of things that are added on to our negative thinking that makes it difficult. I remember working with a client, and it's been a long time that I worked with a young person who actually wanted to be married so early, so badly. And I remember hearing her tell herself that she was never going to get married. And if she kept at this pace with not finding a good date or not dating a lot of guys, then she would be without this ideal husband that she had in her mind. What I realize is that she's been told this from growing up, what marriage meant and where you needed to be and how everyone fell in love by a certain age. But then on top of that, her societal expectations are that she wanted children by a certain point. All these things were creating these lack of perfection of who she is, which was also blocking her from even being able to get into good relationships and date. But that's here for another story. But the point in that is that a lot of times our societal expectations then become the voice in our heads that we put into ourselves and what we start to expect of ourselves, which means that then if we're not perfect at them, something's wrong with us. The last one is when we think about what brings negative self-talk, it really comes down to past mistakes and trauma that haven't been healed from for us. If you haven't already, check out our video on 5 signs of unhealed or unresolved trauma, because really what happens here, and a lot of us labor in this belief that we don't need to fix and or resolve some of the trauma, when in reality it starts to come into our voice in our heads every single day. And so our past mistakes, the ones that we may have done ourselves, but also the things that were done against us and were not our faults, can make the voice in our head very negative and make that inner speaking somewhat only coming from a foundation of harm and hurt towards ourselves. So how do we break these cycles? And believe me, excuse me, believe me, I'm not saying that this is going to be easy. But the first thing with any real change is recognizing. Recognize the patterns. Pay attention to your thoughts. What are you telling yourself? When you hear yourself saying something negative, stop and ask, would I say this to my best friend, to my child, to the one that I love or say that I love? If not, don't say it to yourself. Stop and think, what can I say differently? Which is going to bring us to the second thing. Reframe the thought. Instead of saying things like I always fail, I am learning and growing. Instead of I'm good enough, say I am worthy as I am, right? And so instead of I'm not good enough, I should say, I'm sorry, I am worthy as I am, is a good response or counter. And then think about daily affirmations and journaling. I talk about that all the time, and I think you hear it a lot, and a lot of people are like, oh, I just can't journal. I don't know. It's not my thing. But I can tell you that it is your thing. Your brain is always working. So even if you don't get to put it out or write it down every single day, think about grabbing a piece of paper next to you when you're at your office, when you're in your work, whenever you're doing, or in your phone, just grabbing that opportunity to write 3 things that you're proud of every single day. This will allow you to speak them to yourself. So writing them down and speaking them out allows for your brain to start to register them as things that you want to do and or believe. And so my real issue is when we don't have that avenue of writing it down and or putting it in place, we tend to forget. And so if you come to my office, besides I don't know if you can see the picture behind me, I have different pictures of Black women and different pictures all around me of Black women and the beauty of them. But then I also have words that I say to myself or I can look over and see. So I have the footprints, that's just something that speaks to me spiritually. Then I have over here, I am telling myself a new truth, which is one of my affirming statements. On my side over here, you can't see it, but I have my actual vision board. Right on that vision board, there's things that says pray, believe, receive, joy. You are already what you need to get to success. Travel the world. There's different things that make us have to think and see differently. But I also have a notebook next to me, and that notebook gives me the opportunity to kind of write, also as a Black woman, gives me the opportunity to write down good things throughout the day and or to challenge some of the thoughts that might pop up if I'm trying to do an assignment related to work or trying to get something, a proposal submitted by a certain point where I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do this. You have what it takes to get this done. Quickly write it down for myself. So I say that because when you're trying to actively challenge negative thoughts or negative self-talk, you can't do one thing. You have to do multiple things. To recognize the pattern is one, reframe the thought, and then daily affirmations and journaling that challenges them will help you. One of the things also is that this has got to be an ongoing daily thing. I talked about last week, self-love being uh, a practice and not a destination. Always remember that we have to practice daily in order for it to feel natural for us. If we don't, we're going to do it 1 or 2 days and then go right back into what was making us feel less validated, less loving, and less caring for ourselves. You are powerful beyond measure, sis. Believe that when I say your words create your reality. Make sure you're speaking life into yourself every single day. Drop a yellow heart in the comments if you're committing to changing your self talk. And also, if you are interested, tell me 1 or 2 of your negative thoughts or self talk, and I will give you some good, concrete, challenging reframe statements that responds to those. All right, y'all. Be well.